For a while now, some of the biggest players in India's third party logistics industry have been riding on the success of e commerce unicorn Meesho. For a company like Meesho that clocks in millions of orders every single day, solid logistics is everything. So, companies like Delivery and Ecom Express happily rose to the occasion and partnered with Meesho to handle all of its order deliveries. This was a big opportunity for them, especially considering most of the other major e commerce players in India, like Flipkart and Amazon, take care of all their logistics in house. Flipkart has its own logistics company called eCart, while Amazon has ATS or Amazon Transportation Services. So, for all the other third party logistics companies, having Meesho as a client was great for business. As of 2023, it accounted for over half of the 2.5 billion shipments that were being handled by third party logistic players. Which is why, when Meesho announced that it was launching Valmo, its own in house logistics arm, its partners were understandably nervous. But no one is more shaken up than Ecom Express. Its core business is under attack. Its biggest client has officially turned into its competitor. And this could not have come at a worse time because the company is set to go public soon. And this is the company's second IPO attempt. The first time it had to cancel its plans because of unfavorable market conditions. So, as you can tell, there is a lot riding on this. All you need is one look at the company's financials to know just how dependent it is on Meesho. The e commerce platform has pretty much been its lifeblood. According to its IPO filings, over half of its nearly 3,000 crore rupee operational revenue registered in the year 2024 came from one unnamed customer. And at least four people have confirmed to the Ken reporter Gaurav Bagur that the unnamed customer in question is in fact Meesho. But even before Meesho announced Valmo, things were not looking great for Ecom Express. It was not growing as fast as its biggest competitor, Delivery. And for the last 2 years, its revenue has almost stayed flat. Analysts say that is largely because, unlike Delivery, Ecom Express put all its eggs in one basket. While Delivery had built full service logistics to deflect the Valmo impact, Ecom Express was busy doing everything it could to woo Meesho. Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Nigdha Sharma, and I don't chase the news cycle. Instead, every day of the week, my colleague Rahil Philippos and I will come to you with one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. In many ways, Ecom Express and Meesho have sort of grown together. They were both founded around the same time, Ecom Express in 2012 and Meesho in 2015. From the very beginning, both companies have worked very closely together. Of course, this meant that Ecom Express started getting a lot of business from Meesho very early on. But it was more than that. Former executives say that Ecom Express employees would make frequent visits to Meesho's first ever office in Bangalore. It was a humble, home like space crammed with employees, a far cry from the fancy, sprawling office that they now have. It was around last year when things started changing. This was when Meesho started scaling its in house logistics. It was the next natural step. Like I mentioned earlier, most major e commerce companies take care of their own logistics. There are two main reasons for this. First, the company does not want to rely too heavily on a handful of third party logistic partners, and in Meesho's case, it finally became big enough to launch its own logistics business. And second, it wanted to have more control over the process, simply because it would then be able to bring down the cost of returns and failed delivery attempts. This was a sore subject for Ecom Express. A former employee told the Ken that Meesho had set a target for the company saying that returns should not exceed 18% of shipments. But unfortunately, Ecom Express consistently failed to meet that target month after month. So now, Meesho is taking matters into its own hands. As of now, it has managed to move more than a third of its order volumes through Valmo. And a consultant in the logistics space says that this allocation could go up to 50% in about a year's time. Meesho claims that Valmo has reduced its logistic costs by nearly 10%. So, Meesho does not own any trucks, warehouses, or sorting centers, unlike third party logistic firms or other marketplaces logistics arms. Instead, Valmo is a tech platform that breaks down each leg of the supply chain. Unorganized local players handle the shipments at each step with Valmo coordinating handovers. So, Meesho is able to avoid the costs associated with building physical infrastructure. It also does not have to make any big investments towards automation. So, where does this leave things for Ecom Express? Well, back in the day, it was taking care of 1 million out of 2 million of Meesho's daily shipments. But now, Meesho has grown to over 3.5 million a day, and Ecom Express is taking care of the same number of shipments. So, the logistics company is stuck between a rock and a hard place, and Meesho has made the most of it. More on that in the next segment.
Hi, we have an exciting announcement. If you are a regular listener, you would know that the Ken's podcasts have hit many milestones this year. From Daybreak crossing 1 million downloads to the launch of our first ever premium podcast, 2 by 2 We want to keep this momentum going. And for that, we are looking for talented people to join our team. We're looking for a podcast producer to help us produce great narrative-driven shows at the intersection of journalism and business. And we're also looking for an audio journalist who has covered one or more business sectors, ideally careers, education, tech, or startups for at least 2 years. If you fit the bill or know anyone who does, please check out the link in the show notes. And now, back to the episode.
You see, Valmo did not emerge overnight. Both Ecom Express and Meesho were discussing it for a while, back when it was a pilot. Meesho basically gave Ecom Express an ultimatum: match Valmo's costs and we will shut it down tomorrow. Ecom Express could not do it. So it tried to meet Meesho's demands in other ways, by updating the logistics company's processes to develop new reports and analytics. Another way was offering early morning deliveries. This was despite the additional infrastructure and labor costs. But Ecom Express was willing to go that extra mile if it meant it could get more of Meesho's shipments. It also scaled up reverse pickup services for items returned by customers, another costly venture that did more harm than good. And despite all of these efforts, it still remains in a pretty uncomfortable spot. Meanwhile, delivery always wanted the upper hand. It never wanted to be at the mercy of the marketplace. And the way for it to do this was by diversifying its client base. So now the company serves over 20,000 small and medium enterprises in its express parcel business alone. Compare that to Ecom Express, which only has 6,000 customers in total. Delivery is also building the range of services it can offer outside of e commerce. For instance, its party truckload business, where it moves relatively larger shipments from multiple clients in a single vehicle, makes up nearly a fifth of its revenue. The company has also ventured into warehousing and supply chain services. But that said, delivery still needs Meesho. So, it is most likely going to lower its prices to reduce the volume loss thanks to Valmo. Plus, its full service logistics model is more asset heavy as it needs to own tractor trailers and has invested in building large automated warehouses. This is where Ecom Express has a slight advantage. It can lower fixed costs while still having more room to slash costs, even when its revenues take a hit. But Apart from that, its bet on different revenue streams have not quite panned out. More on that in the next segment. It's not like Ecom Express has not tried to diversify its services on offer. For example, it started something called modular services with Valmo in mind. So, Ecom Express plays a part only in a particular leg of the supply chain instead of handling the shipment end to end. The company is also trying to prioritize its other big customers, particularly Reliance owned online fashion marketplace Agio. It has been pushing for a greater wallet share from them. So it has been trying to diversify, but a lot of its bets have just not been successful. For example, the company also delved into warehouse management and operating dark stores for quick commerce players. But this makes up only 1/10 of its revenue. And it's not clear how strong of a revenue driver this will be going ahead. And that is because major quick commerce players like Blinkit, Zepto, or Swiggy Instamart would not want to hand over control of their highest volume dark stores to a third party logistics company. It would end up compromising their speed. At best, dark stores operated by third party logistic companies would be a small niche in tier 2 locations. And as for modular services, its share in Ecom Express's revenue remains so small that it comes under express parcel business. The company aims to grow this division to 5 to 10% of its overall revenue by next year. The company is also dealing with somewhat of a leadership crisis. For example, Ecom Express had two sets of people: key account managers and sales personnel, both to deal with the same clients, which caused internal conflict between these teams. And the lack of clarity exists from the top of the food chain too. Former employees told the Ken that none of the company's founders were deeply involved in day to day business. The company just went through a major shakeup of the top level leadership. It got a new CEO named Ajay Chitkara in September 2023. Chitkara led the enterprise arm of the telecom giant Bharti Airtel before he joined Ecom Express. With him, many other top level executives came in too. The hope is that this will herald a new era for the company. It certainly looks like a much needed refresh is underway. But is this enough to revitalize stagnant revenues and introduce more agility? Only time will tell.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings. A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. To subscribe, head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on top of the Ken website. Today's episode was hosted by Snigdha Sharma and edited by Rajiv CN.